True power isn't about brute strength, overwhelming force, or sheer numbers. It's about the ability to control outcomes without direct conflict. The most powerful entities in history, whether individuals, civilizations, or species, are not necessarily those who fought the most battles, but those who ensured battles never needed to be fought in the first place. Control manifests in many ways. It can be political, where leaders shape alliances and policies so that war becomes unnecessary or unwinnable for their enemies. It can be economic, where a nation or species controls essential resources, making it impractical for opponents to engage in conflict. It can be technological, where an advanced civilization ensures that any act of aggression is countered before it even begins. Influence is equally critical. The most dominant forces in history have not always been the ones with the largest armies, but the ones whose ideologies, cultures, and technologies spread so deeply that others willingly align with them. When a society controls narratives, education, and thought processes, they shape reality itself. Wars become obsolete when the opposition is already convinced that resistance is futile or unnecessary. Dominance isn't about fighting, it's about ensuring that a fight is never needed. The greatest powers don't just win wars, they dictate when and if wars even occur. Their enemies don't challenge them, not out of fear of destruction, but because they see no viable path to victory. When a civilization reaches this level of control, they become untouchable, not because they wield the biggest weapons, but because they shape the battlefield before conflict even begins. True power lies not in force, but in the ability to make war irrelevant. Fear of the unknown is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. It dictates decisions, shapes strategies, and often prevents direct conflict. The most dangerous enemies are not always the strongest, fastest, or most numerous. They are the ones whose capabilities remain a mystery. When an adversary's full strength is unknown, the risk of engagement becomes too high. Uncertainty breeds hesitation. When a species, nation, or civilization encounters an opponent that defies conventional understanding, they are forced into a defensive stance. Wars are not just fought with weapons, they are fought with perception. If one side cannot accurately measure the potential consequences of war, they will often choose not to fight at all. Fear, in this sense, is not about terror, it is about doubt. The moment doubt creeps into a strategist's mind, the battle is already half won. Throughout history, the greatest deterrents have not always been physical weapons, but the perception of unstoppable power. Even the suggestion that an enemy possesses a force beyond comprehension is enough to prevent war. The unknown enemy could have superior technology, hidden forces, or unconventional tactics. It is this uncertainty that makes them untouchable. Humans, for example, are unpredictable. Their adaptability, resilience, and strategic thinking make them difficult to assess. An empire that wages war through strength alone can be countered, but an opponent that fights in unseen ways is far more dangerous. When no clear pattern exists, when every past attempt to engage has ended in unexplained failure, the logical decision is to avoid conflict altogether. In the end, true power is not just about strength, but about the ability to make an opponent question every possible outcome. When fear of the unknown takes hold, the war is over before it begins. Control, influence, and dominance shape the foundations of power, often more effectively than brute force. The ability to control situations, outcomes, and even perceptions determines who truly holds power. It is not always the strongest who win, but those who ensure the battle is never fought in the first place. Control can come in many forms: military, economic, technological, or psychological. Those who master control do not need to respond to threats because they prevent them from emerging in the first place. Influence extends beyond direct control. It seeps into the culture, economy, and decision-making of others, subtly guiding them toward desired actions without force. The most powerful civilizations or entities do not need to conquer through war. They conquer through ideas, alliances, and dependencies. When a society's way of thinking, technology, or resources become essential to others, war becomes unnecessary. Enemies turn into allies, and resistance fades without a fight. Influence is the invisible hand that shapes the course of history. Dominance is the final stage, where control and influence become so absolute that opposition no longer exists. At this point, war is not deterred because of the risk it is never even considered. True dominance does not require constant enforcement. It exists as an undeniable fact. The strongest powers are not always those who display force, but those who shape reality itself. Whether through strategy, perception, or unseen mechanisms, they make themselves untouchable. Their enemies do not fight them, not because they lack weapons, but because they see no path to victory. In the end, power is not just about who wields the biggest weapon or the largest army. It is about who controls the game, influences the players, and dominates the battlefield before the first move is ever made.